Hello, Judith. This is Merlin. I thought I'd make a short video talking to you about writing, which is something you and I talked about online, but you and I haven't talked, on camera or in person for decades. And last time I saw you, I was like 14, I believe. So anyway, ever since I was that age or even earlier, I've wanted to write, and I have made attempts to write, but the problem is I'm extremely lazy. You know, I'll start writing something and I'll be really interested in it, and then I'll write till I'm tired, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'll come back to this later, and then I'll never get back to it. I started saving ideas on a notepad and saving it on my computer, and then I lost it. I couldn't find it. But I would say over the last 5 years, I've had this idea to write a book by writing 20 chapters, 20 pages each. And 20 pages is a lot, I know. But I don't know why I chose 20. I mean, we could do 12, It's just a number that popped in my head. I have issues with some writing. One thing I have problems with is dialogue, writing a conversation. And I tried to look for examples in books. But when I would try to write dialogue, excuse me, I'm still a little, still have a little bit of a thing going on in my throat from being sick. But writing dialogue has been difficult because it was like he said, she said, he responded, they replied. It was just so I need some help with that if I decide to put dialogue into my writing. The other thing is I've tried to do is write as like a narrator, where I'm telling a story, not necessarily talking about the dialogue. Talking about the dialogue, but not writing it as like somebody saying this. Let me give you an example. I could say something like, and as I sat there at my desk writing, my friend John came into the room and he told me that he just learned from Susan down the hall that they're going to be doing a pest control inspection in the building, and just was giving me a warning about that. And I asked him, well, when are they going to be doing it? Because I was planning on doing such and such. And he said, well, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's going to be tomorrow, and it's going to be at 10 o'clock. So I was just like, no, I really don't want to have to deal with that. He said, yeah, but you gotta, because if you don't, they'll violate you and say that you can't do that, and they'll put a mark against you, and they'll use that later to evict you. So you gotta let them in. It's the law. They give you 24-hour notice. I said, well, I haven't gotten 24-hour notice yet. You've told me about it, but as far as I know, nobody's given anybody any notice. That was just something I was talking about at the top of my head. But you see what I'm saying? I don't know how to write that. And I want to learn how to write that. I really do. I want to be able to talk about a conversation and it not be repetitive, and it not be he said, she said type of a deal. I'm not sure. So, I thought, if you and I could talk about my ideas and see what I really want to write. Now, I'm not trying to be on the New York Times bestseller list or anything like that. I'm really not. I'm more interested in writing something that I can leave behind for others to know something about my life, especially my family. But, here's the thing about it. I have lived a very solitary life. Most of the time I've lived alone. A lot of the things I've experienced have been by myself, and things that nobody will ever know. But I'd like people to know some of that, and I'd like to write it down. Okay, so that's the I can't even say it. How am I going to spell it? Autobiographical. I think that's the way you say it. Autobiographical. That's that part. I also have this situation where I've been warned not to put any of my relatives' names, mainly my siblings, my older siblings, not to put any of my older siblings' names into anything or make them a recognizable character, you know. But some things in my life I'd like to write about, especially the abuse that I suffered. So I'd like to try to find a way to write that. And I might have to make it like fictional situations so that it wouldn't resemble anybody's real life, so they can't be identified. So there's that. The other piece of that is fiction that I want to write. And that's where it might be a problem, because how am I going to write a book with chapters that are autobiographical and chapters that are fiction? And I came upon an idea. And I just want to run it by you and see what you think. So, I've always had a really good imagination. And I've always had this ability to I've always had this ability to imagine what I would like to write. And often imagine what I'd like to see on film. Like what I'd like to see a movie about. But of course, I'm in it. And I'm participating in it. You know, fictional things that I'd like to do. Almost like what I would be like in another universe, in a multiverse type situation. Now, recently, the multiverse angle has been in a lot of movies lately. And I can't really do it the way I thought I would be doing it. I had this idea to write stories, write a story about my life and then 5 other universes about me, what my life would have been like in other universes, and different scenarios that I imagine. Like in one life, I'm a conductor of an orchestra, and how I interact with characters who are in the orchestra and in my life. In another life, I'm captain of an aircraft carrier. How I got there, you know, my life leading up to becoming the commander of the ship. Another life, I'm a chef, and as a chef, I come up with this thing where I start filming me and my little grandson when he's really young, and I create a YouTube show called, named after my grandson, his name actually, Kieran Dante Thomas Flamiano, and growing up with him growing up, becoming a young man, and the things we do. And I could elaborate more about that later. We're almost getting to 10 minutes in this video. And then, you know, there's this life where, you know, I am in Southeast Asia. I'm participating in the entertainment industry there. I become a financial backer for individuals and groups. I help promote these groups, and somehow I'm also, this could be a separate story or part of that story, I'm also very active in the Philippines doing humanitarian work, bringing food supplies, dental supplies, medical supplies to neighborhoods in the Philippines where they're experiencing great poverty. And the craziest one of all that I ever thought about and imagined, I imagined that I was an astrophysicist and I was working with engineers at the University of Rochester, and I participated in an experiment using high energy and negative matter that creates a vortex. And I have a young friend who I've been tutoring, and she is caught up in this vortex and transported back in time to London during the late 1960s. And, she only knows music and everything from the 2000s, so she's not very knowledgeable at all about the music of the 60s. And she happens to stumble across where Apple Studios was. And, at that time, it didn't matter who you were. You could just walk into the Apple Studios building, and the Beatles might just be in there, practicing or playing or doing business or whatever. And I know that because I've read a lot about people that did that. It was just kind of open all the time. They never knew who might drop in. They never had a problem with anybody like threatening them or anything like that. So I know that's a kind of crazy story. It fits into my whole Beatles thing, and that might not be very realistic, but you'd be surprised how much I've thought about that and her experience of being in the 60s and not understanding the culture, and then her having a group of friends that she met where she's like introducing things to them that they've never heard of. It's because she's from the 2000s and she's introducing them to rap and hip hop and things like that, and they think it's funny, they think it's cool, and she and this boy, they fall in love, and she realizes she doesn't want to go back to her century because she's met this boy, and she's very much in love. But in the meantime, me, the physicist, and other physicists are working to try to reverse this situation. I even have a scene where Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson are arguing over the physics of the situation. And even though he's dead now, I mean, we could set it, when he was still alive. Stephen Hawking is kind of in the middle of this thing, and he's the one that actually comes up with the real solution. And they put it into practice. They recreate this wormhole type vortex thing, and just as the girl and the boy that are in love, they are about to embrace and kiss on a hilltop under this tree, the vortex forms, and it gently lifts her up, and the gravity is pulling her towards it, or the force is pulling her towards it, and her boyfriend is trying to pull her back, and she's reaching for him. She can't reach, and he's reaching for her, and just slowly she's elongated like spaghetti, like the black hole effect. Like when you pass the event horizon, she's elongated, and she's sucked into this wormhole, and then she travels back, and she's dropped into her correct time period, and she's exhausted, and we're all so happy that it worked, and she's back, and it's great. And all of a sudden, she's very sad and distraught, and she's crying, and she wants to go back. And that's one of the little stories I was thinking about, having these 5 different universes. But I put it in the context of, just like I told it to you. It's like I am in my real life, which is this life. I tell true things about my life and what I've experienced. But these moments where, I just kind of zone out and have these fictional fantasies about, what it would be like if I lived this other life. And this other life, since I imagined it, it's real. Because here's the thing, physicists have said that let me rephrase that. Physicists have said there's only so many ways that atoms and molecules can arrange themselves before they start repeating. And they a lot of them believe that the universe is actually infinite, and that the multiverse is actually infinite, because every time you make a decision, the multiverse branches off. And in that universe, every time a decision is made, it branches off another way. And then it's forever growing, like tendrils, like roots on a tree. It's forever breaking off and going off in different directions, because every time you make a decision to do something, the decision not to do something was also made. So there's another way that situation could have gone. And they're like, well, there has to be copies of everything, because since there are infinite ways for matter to arrange itself, it has to repeat. It might repeat in a different way in another universe, but it's repeating over and over. And there eventually is going to be an exact copy of you, an exact copy of Earth, an exact copy of everything that you know. But there might be one little thing that's different, or you might make a decision that's totally different from the decision you made in this universe. And that's what we are. We too, more likely, we are not the main universe. We're probably a branch of this. Now, I don't know how much you read about physics and astronomy and things like that, but I've always loved astronomy. I've always loved about physics. I never could really do a lot of physics because I'm bad at math. I really am. I have taken a class called Physics for Non-Majors, which was a great class. And I really enjoy watching YouTube shows about physics and astronomy. I'm very picky about what I watch because some of them are just bogus. They're just rehashing information or telling false information in order to just get views. So, like, I watch a lot of Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Greene. There's a guy named Sean Carroll. He's a physicist. Trying to think of some others. Oh, well, of course, there's Michio Kaku, there's PBS Science, which I can't think of that guy's name. There's another guy that's with a channel called Cool Worlds. He's actually at, I think it's NYU. I'm actually bad remembering names. But, yeah, I tend to watch channels where, you can say, okay, this guy he's a professor at this university, or he's in charge of this organization. He's not just some random guy on the internet trying to rehash science information. Alex McColgan, he's another one. He's a science educator online. So I'm not... Well, I want anything I write about as far as science stuff to be actual science stuff. Not something I just made up. And if I think of something that's not right, that doesn't check out, then I don't want to include that. So that's why some of this, would be a very slow thing. But I can't do anything unless I start writing, And I can hand it to you, and you can say, Merlin, this sounds like bullshit. And I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah. Or you could say, Merlin, this is great. You should write more on this, Or Merlin, you made a lot of spelling errors. Well, more than likely, if I'm writing something on Microsoft Word, I'm going to use spell check, But you could still correct me on grammar, or you could say, hey, I think you should have said it this way, because you would be my editor. Now, here's the thing. I can't pay you in advance. I'm not a wealthy person. And I don't believe it's going to be like a big book. It's not going to be something that, it's a bestseller or anything. But I wouldn't be opposed to publishing it. And seeing what would happen. So if I ever get it written, maybe you could shop it around and see, if we could find a publisher for it. And if we end up getting paid, then of course you would get a cut of that, And I really would like your feedback on this video that I've made. I'm sorry the camera's all shaky and stuff because I'm holding my phone in my hand. And I've been talking to you almost 20 minutes now. So I'm going to try to end this before it hits the 20-minute mark. Just please do me a favor. You don't have to make a video. You can send me text or email or whatever you want. I will send you that information through a Facebook message. But just please take a few minutes and watch this video. I guess if you've watched it this far, you've already done that. And give me some feedback. Tell me what you think. And I got other ideas too, I think the main thing I need is motivation to do it, to write. So even if I just write a few pages and send it to you, you can say, okay, you're on the right track here. Or, no, this is stupid. Come up with something else or whatever. Okay? Thank you, Judyth. I hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.